Here with his take on this year's planting season, Matt Hutcheson from Seed Consultants.
As we look forward to spring field work this year, there's several important things we need to keep in mind. One big challenge growers are going to be facing is that because of the wet fall, the late harvest, there's a lot of fall field work, whether it's tillage or fertilizer application or herbicide application that didn't get done. And so we need to be thinking about how we're going to manage that this spring. We're looking at possibly a heavier weed pressure because weeds like mare's tail that would have been controlled by the fall tillage or a simple herbicide application were not killed and are out there in our fields now. This could become a problem. Those mare's tail plants that were just the size of a quarter or smaller last fall after harvest are going to be ready to bolt as the weather warms and they start growing faster. So we'll need to be able to get on top of that with our herbicide applications, make sure we're applying effective burn downs with a residual. Another thing to keep in mind is we can't move all of our fall tillage operations and all of our fall, whether it's herbicides or fertilizer applications, into the spring in addition to planting and everything else we're doing. So we need to make sure that we're managing that, minimizing our passes across the field, minimizing preparatory operations so that we don't further delay planting. As we look at the weather patterns we're in, it's been kind of a cool, wet spring, so there is potential for delays there in terms of planting. It's always important to keep in mind that early planting favors high yields, but it doesn't guarantee them. So the optimal planting window in Ohio is generally understood to be about April 20th to May 10th. And once you start getting into mid-May or late May, every day you're delayed, you're losing as much as 1% of your yield. But just because the research shows early planting favors high yields, we still want to avoid getting in too early, causing compaction, causing other problems by mudding in seed or working ground when it's too wet. But that's a key thing to keep in mind. If we start to get a little bit of a delay, that it's more important to wait for field conditions to be favorable rather than get in a hurry and get out there too soon. And along with that, we're taking a look at soil temperatures today. Obviously it's cold, it's wet, we're nowhere near where we need to be. It is only early April, but when we look at corn and soybeans, corn needs a soil temperature of 50 degrees or higher to germinate, and soybeans need a temperature of 54 degrees or higher. That's something to keep in mind when you're getting ready to head to the field. What's the weather pattern been? What's the weather doing in the near forecast? If the soil temperatures are too cool and you've got some wet, cold weather, probably want to keep the planter in the barn and avoid possible replant or damage to seedlings early on. My advice for the 2019 season, as far as planting is concerned, is to get off to a good start. Planting sets the stage the entire year. You start with your highest yield potential at planting, so you want to make sure you're doing everything to the best of your ability. Do a good job the first time so that hopefully you don't have to come back a second time. But make sure the field conditions are right, it's not too wet, the soil temperatures are warm enough, the forecast is conducive to planting, there's not cool wet rains in the future. Planting depth, you want to monitor that throughout the season. You want to make sure that seed spacing is correct. You want to make sure that just in general your planter is doing a good job and you're taking the time to monitor that throughout the entire planting season.